In today's video, I will be showing you how to convert merge statements into DBT incremental models. So let's get to it. Okay, so like I mentioned in today's video, I will be walking you through the process of converting merge statements into DBT incremental models. Alright, so far the incremental models that we've been looking into have been basic select statements. But what if you have a merge statement that you want to migrate and leverage the use of DBT incremental models? How do you do that? Okay, so in today's video, I will be walking you through the steps of converting merge DML statements into DBT select incremental models. All right. So this is one of the merge statements that we will be using in this video. So I have here a merge statement, and basically this merge statement is matching data into a target table and getting it from a source table, matching it on custom ID, and if there are any matches, then it's going to make some updates. And for any records that do not match, those records get inserted into the target database. I will be doing this in BigQuery. So let's switch over to BigQuery now. This is my BigQuery. I'm just going to open a BigQuery right here. And what I will do is I'm going to actually load data to one of these staging datasets or schemas. So I have a dataset here called staging, and what I will do is I will load some data into this staging schema and do some match statements into it. So basically we will manually run that match statement to update that table, and what we will do after that is replicate the same to DBT. So basically what I will do is I will create a customers table to hold the initial data, and then I will bring additional data into this customers update table, which will be now our source data moving forward. And then we will use this data to match into our target table. And for any records that match, then we'll update the existing table, basically, which is this one. And for records that do not match, we will insert that data into the target database. Okay, so that's basically how match statements work in BigQuery. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I will switch over to dbeaver. So this is my dbeaver SQL editor. You can use the BigQuery editor, so it doesn't matter. I just find it easier to use this dbeaver to write queries because it's much cleaner and easier to use. If you want to know the process of connecting your BigQuery to dbeaver, I released another video previously where I went through the steps of basically downloading dbeaver and connecting to BigQuery. There are a series of videos that I did where I was connecting dbeaver to BigQuery, MySQL, Postgre, Redshift, Snowflake. So I have all of my databases actually running currently in dbeaver. But this is not a requirement. You can still use BigQuery editor as well. This should work. So what I will do then is I will go to right here, and I want to create a table called customers. So this is the DML for that. You can copy this and run it in BigQuery editor. It should run fine. So this will be our target table, and we want to create this table and basically load some initial data. So we are going to load some initial data to this table. Okay, so it has loaded, and if we go to our staging here now and view the data for this, we should be able to see those three records that we inserted. Okay, so we have the customer ID as the primary ID, and then first name, last name, all the way to the updated timestamp. Okay, so once we have that, so we have our initial table now, which will serve as our target table. And then the next thing that we'll do is we need to create our source table. So assuming, let's say this is our raw layer now where we are ingesting our data to. Okay, so I'm going to create this to serve as our staging table or as our raw table where we are ingesting our data to before we merge it into the target database. Okay, so we will create this table, and from there I'm just going to add additional records to this. Okay, so I'm just going to insert some records there, and keep in mind that these records, both of these two tables have the same field IDs or field names. Okay, and then so we have inserted now data into this row table, and what we will want to do is we now want to merge this table into our target database. And what we want to do when we are merging is that this is a merge statement right here. We are merging into our customers table as target using our row table, which is customers data, to serve as our source. And we are using this unique ID, custom ID. So whenever this merge, whenever there's a merge on this, then we will update the field these fields. So we are basically going to update all of the field names to reflect or to get it from the source. So basically whenever there's a merge, then we are basically taking these fields that come from the source. Okay, and so what we expect to see now, let me just refresh this schema right here. And what we expect to see, maybe I should switch over to the dashboard. That is probably going to give us a better view. So if you run your target data now, if you run the query on your target table, you will see that we have 3 IDs, and these 3 IDs currently this is the data that we have there. Okay, so some of the fields that are not able to watch on this one is this one for status. So we have the 3 custom IDs. It's only customer ID number 2 that's inactive right here. And then for our source data right here, just going to run this. Okay, so we have additional records now. So we have record number 2 and number 3, and this should match what is in target, right? So we have number 2 and number 3. So if anything changes here, we are going to update the target database. So if you see here, we have 1, 2, 3, but the records that are coming in are have ID number 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so what's going to happen here when we run the merge statement is that for the records that are matching to our source data, and here we have ID number 2 and number 3. So for these 2 records, we are updating the records to get the latest one from the source. So which means that for number 2 and number 3, so number 2, the status was active, and right here the status was inactive. So number 2 is going to be updated to be active. Okay, to be active. And then number 3 is active. Number 3 is active right here, and number 3 is also active right here. So nothing will change for number 3. The other thing that will change in our merge statement is that we are saying when we merge this, if there are any merging records, just update it. If there's no merging record, then basically insert that record to our target database. So what we expect to see then is for number 4, it's going to be appended into our target database. So the only thing that we'll see when our data changes then is that we will get number 1. So we'll get number 1, 2, 3, 4 basically. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, and the status for those 2 IDs will be updated. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and run this merge statement now. So I'm going to run this statement. Okay. All right, so our match statement completed running now. So the next thing that we'll do is go to our target table and we will refresh it. So I'm going to refresh this table right here. Okay, there we go. So you can see now that we have the status has changed. So the status has been updated and we have additional record number 4. So this record is a new one that came in. It didn't match our target. And for record number 2, which was inactive before, it's now active. Record number 3 did not change because it was just active. And number 1, we didn't do anything on this. So the only thing that changed in record number 3 is a timestamp. Okay, so it caught the latest timestamp because we also had that one coming from the source as well. So it caught the latest timestamp. Okay, so we can see now how the match statement works in BigQuery if we're not using DBT. Okay, so that's generally how the match statement works. So basically it's going to use the ID that you're using to combine the two, and then for any records that match, it's going to update, and any that is not matching, we are inserting it. So now we want to move this match statement and implement it in DBT. So how do we do that? Okay, so let's go ahead now to our VS Code, and like I mentioned again, we want to convert this match statement into DBT. So from DBT perspective, we don't want to run DML statements, or basically DDL statements in DBT, because that goes against what DBT is for. DBT models are basically select statements. So we don't want to put this match statement into our models. So then what we'll do is we will go to our incremental models, and the way to convert these match statements into incremental models is that for each match statement, we are going to strip it out and make it a CTE. So this is how it works, right? So this is the converted version of this. I'm going to basically create two files here. The first one in my models is the YAML file. So let me just close the rest of this other one so that you see how my structure is working, because I do have some files from other projects as well. So here I created this project for BigQuery and connected it into my BigQuery. Again, if you don't know how to do this, there's another video where I went through the process of setting up your DBT core to connect to your BigQuery. So if you want to go through the process of setting that up, just watch that video. But once you do that, you will get this structure right here. And the structure is, you have your analysis, you have your DBT, packages, logs, macros, and models. So I basically created these two files. The schema.yaml file will be connecting to my BigQuery source. So you can see here, I'm pointing it to my staging, and now we are not going to create a target database. DBT is going to create that for us. The only thing that we need to create here is our source table. So we will be using customers update as our source data. And then now when we come to our SQL model, this is how that match statement will look like. Okay, so basically this is incremental model. At the top of it, here we want to put the configuration. So we are configuring this as incremental, or basically materializing it as incremental model, and this will tell DBT how to create this model. So we are going to be materializing this as incremental, and the ID will be unique. The unique ID will be custom ID, and I will create this table in BigQuery as customers underscore DBT. So this is how the table will be created in BigQuery. Now the fun part comes in here. Okay, so this is now the fun part of converting the match statements into a bunch of CTEs. So the first thing that we'll do here is basically get data from our source. So as you can see here, I'm selecting, I'm creating this CTE called source data, and I'm retrieving the field names and we are getting it from the customer's update table in BigQuery, which is this table right here. Okay, and then what I'm saying here is if we run this as incremental, then we basically want to get only the latest data. So I put this where clause here where it says updated at should be greater than the maximum updated at value from this table. So this is the existing table. So the first time that you run, this will not be there, but the second time we run, it's going to get the maximum updated at field from your existing table, and only select or get the data from your source where updated at is less than what's coming in. Okay, so basically, here what we want to do is we want to get the new data. If you don't have this field, you can comment this out if this field is not there, and basically just you can comment all of this out. It doesn't matter. So if you don't have any updated at field, at least for this CTE here, you can comment this out and run the rest of the process. But for me, I do have it, so I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to leave it here. And then the next thing that we'll do is the updates section. Okay, so this is now this part here. Okay, so this is the second part here. And what we are doing in this query here is saying, okay, so we are saying updates as select, and we are selecting the fields that we want to update. So basically all of the fields that we want to update: customer ID, first name, last name. And what we want to do is we're saying if it's incremental, then we only want to get the records that are matching. So this part is doing that, where customer ID is in our target database. So if this customer ID, because this is a unique ID, if it exists in our database and this is also in the source, then we only want to update that. Okay, so just keep note of this. We're getting the data from the source and we are comparing the custom ID to our target database. And if this custom ID exists in our database, then we want to match this. Okay, so we want to match this. So we match this, and once that matches, we only get the records from our source data, which is exactly what's happening here, because we are saying here when it's matched, then update target to get the records from your source data. See that? Okay, which is happening right here. And then now the last part is the inserts. Okay, so we are only going to insert if there's no match, right? Which is the second part right here. So then this CTE right here is the one that is taking care of that. So we are saying inserts as select all of these fields that we want to insert from source data where customer ID is not in our updates. So remember, now this updates is this CTE right here. And we said here where customer ID is in our existing database. So if it's there, then we update it. Now we are going down here and saying that if this customer ID is not does not exist in this category here, then we go ahead and insert that record into our database. Okay, so we go ahead and insert it into our target database. And then now, so the final version here is basically we are unioning it. So we are unioning the updates. So we are selecting from updates and we are unioning it with inserts, and basically using union distinct so that we get rid of duplicates. And then finally we select stuff from the final, which is right here. So all of the records that are here, both the updates and the new records, will be inserted into our final table right here. So just quickly at a high level, the best way to understand this is if you want to convert merge statements into DBT incremental model, then you have to strip out each section of the merge statement here and put it into different CTE, and then at the end you just union them. So if you had another block here where you say, for example, so if you had another block here of merge statement where it says we're not merged, let's say by source, for example, then maybe delete or do more updates or update again, update set. Okay, so if you had something like this, then this section will again, you'll have to come here and probably say delete or maybe deactivate, deactivate as, and then select that part. So each part of the merge statement will be treated as a CTE by itself. So that's how you best approach this. Otherwise, then it might be difficult because you don't want to write merge statements into your DBT, because that goes against the DBT, what DBT was created for. Okay, so this is how you do that. So basically now we have our incremental data being picked here. We are only selecting what's new. We are updating it here whenever there's a match, and basically we are inserting here whenever there's no match. And basically we just union all of those data, and the rest of that data, all of that data will go into our target database. That was long and winded, but I hope I hope it makes sense. Okay, let me know in the comment section if this does not make sense. You might have to look at this several times before it makes sense, but yeah, so this is how you strip it out. Okay, and now let's go ahead and run this. But before we run this, let's do one thing. Okay, so we will leave this target database untouched because we will not be using this. The one that is our source table is the one where we want to handle. So this one is this is what we are using as our source data here, customers update. So what I will do here is I'm going to truncate this table. I'm going to truncate it. And now this table should be empty. We fill the data on this table. Okay, so it's empty. Now the next thing that we will do is insert initial records. So I'm going to insert these initial records to that table right there. Okay, so now we have these 3 records. Okay, inserted into that table. Okay, and what we need to do now is we need to run our initial model. So when we run this, all of these 3 records will be created in our target database. So remember, in BigQuery we had to manually create this target database, but in DBT the target database will be created by DBT itself. So DBT will create this table for us, and we will call it this table customers DBT. Okay, so again we have our data now loaded into our source data. So let's go ahead and run this table now. Let's run this model. So to run this, let's say run so we just do DBT run. Okay, so this is going to run our incremental model. Okay, so you can see here it's creating a table in our destination called customers DBT. So now if we go back to BigQuery and refresh that, we should be able to see additional table here called customers DBT right here. Okay, and you can see that those are the records that we got. It basically got all of the records from the source and created them right here. Okay, like so. Now the next thing that we need to do is go back to our script here, and we want to now add this additional data into this table here. And the distinguishing thing here will be the current timestamp. So basically we are going to add ID number 2, 3, 4, and ID number 2 and 3, remember, exists in our target database. So we have number 2 and number 3, but number 2 is inactive. We want to activate this record right here. So we want to make it active, and we also have additional record coming in, number 4. So when this one is run, the thing that we again want to see is number 2 will be active, and that additional record will be inserted, which is number 4. Number 1 will not be touched. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So we are going to insert those records into our row layer or into our row table. So we've done that, and if we refresh this data now, we should have 3 additional records here. Okay, so we have 6 records now. You can also truncate this table, but for me, I'm just appending it because DBT will handle it for me based on the update timestamp right here. Okay, so you can see now that we have number 2 that is active, and this is the one that came the latest, and we have number 3 that came the latest also, and number 4 that came right now, which was not there before. So what we need to do now is, if you check our DBT here, the customer's DBT, we still have number 2 as inactive, and number 3 is active. So the only one that will be changed will be number 3, because we'll get a new timestamp. Number 2 will be changed. The status will change to inactive. Sorry, it will change to active, and we'll get a new timestamp. And number 1 will remain the same. So number 1 will still be 1248 when we run our DBT model. So let's go ahead and do it. So now we will just basically run it again. Because we have now fresh records in our source data, all we have to do is run our incremental model, and it's going to scan through our source, detect that there are some additional records based on updated, and then it's going to go ahead and update those records if there is any custom ID that needs to be updated, and for any new custom ID that does not exist, this is going to be inserted. So you can see that now the second time it ran, it executed a match statement. It did not create a table. Okay, so let's go now and refresh our customers.dbt and see what we see. Okay, so you refresh this one, and there we go. Okay, so you can see now that customer number 4 was updated. Basically, no, it was inserted, and the new timestamp is 1241. Customer number 3 only quoted the new timestamp, the status was still active, and number 2 quote the status changed, but number 1, nothing changed in number 1. Okay, so you can see that these 3 records were the ones that were updated. So these 3 records were updated, and number 1 was not updated because the ID was not included right here. Okay, so you can see that we basically achieved the same functionality using DBT versus when we were to use the match statement in BigQuery. Alright, so let's go back to DBT now, and let me just show you one thing. If you go to target and go to, I believe it's in compiled, or is it run? Let's check this. Yes, so it's in the run. If you go to target and go to run, you will see how that query was run, incremental model was run. So you can see it's doing match into, and it's saying using. Okay, so it gets the data from our city is, and then towards the end it's basically saying when it's merged then update, and then when it's not merged then basically insert it. So you can see that DBT is creating the match statement for us, and all we did was just write the select statements. So that is basically how you convert match statements into incremental models. So I hope again you found this video helpful. Please do like this video, subscribe to the channel if you have not, and let me know in the comment section what you think about this use case. Alright guys, that's all I had for you in this video. Bye bye.